So welcome to Pro Wrestling Through the Ages. I am Chip Hazard,
I'm Talon Williams.
Roger Sierra.
and we're going to talk wrestling. Just whatever era, a little bit about us. I was a former pro wrestler, 20 years here locally. Did a couple of spots with like Ring of Honor. Actually got into the ring with like Steve Corino, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson of the Rock and Roll Express, and several others. Met a lot of cool people through the years. Probably the coolest was Ric Flair. Got to hang out with him at a cigar bar once. Hey, it was on his dime, so.
I'm about to ask, did he pay for the drinks?
Alright, I've been involved with professional wrestling also around the same time. Me and this man was actually trained by the same man, Jerry McCoy. Again, I was in it for 20 years, from December of 2002 up until just recently, September 2022. I guess my biggest claim to fame, is that I wrestled Billy Gunn at a GPW show back in 2016, which I don't think I had a match that was higher than that in the world of wrestling, I guess. Been on shows like, Ric Flair, been on shows with Steve Corino, Rock and Roll Express, Lance Archer, a lot of cool names out there, got to do Ring of Honor events. I was part of, done security for Ring of Honor a couple times, and it's fun, but my body hurts, so I'm glad I'm done with it pretty much. So, right, what about you guys?
So I started later than you guys because our age gap.
Age gap.
I started in 2010. I guess I did everything. I was pretty much the training dummy for everybody because back then I was 160 pounds, so super light. Then I did a few spots here and there. Did some shows in North Georgia, some down here, Athens, Knoxville, Pigeon Forge. Managed after a while because it's got tired of being thrown around. And I also like helping other people learn because some people get it, but they don't get it. I think the biggest claim to fame I have is working a show where Scott Hall and his son Cody Hall were doing their tour before Cody went to Japan. Scott was super cool, one of the greatest guys, super humble, super tall, like a giant, literally a giant.
Yeah, he is a giant of a man.
Yeah.
Yes.
But no, that's pretty much it. I like helping out. I have the mind for wrestling, understand it more, and I didn't want my body to break down faster than it should have, so it sort of moved out of the way quickly.
Yeah. But we'll go ahead and open up any questions you guys have. It can be about us in particular, or what you've seen on TV, or even if you've been to some indie shows or whatnot. Feel free. Hand them this way.
Shout them out.
You guys know Corey Lau?
Yeah.
You do? You know Corey?
So Tsunami.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that his name?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one of his names.
One of his names?
Yeah.
Because I know he was the Tennessee heavyweight champion.
Yeah. ETW, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I got a picture over here. I just you guys know he's a supervisor with us now.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So he signed it up too. He said his body can't take it no more.
No. I actually trained with him a little bit and also managed him in a tag team.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because he said his friend, I guess in the tag team, is he in New Japan now? Or one of his friends are
One
in
of
New
his
Japan?
friends, what's his Chase Owens?
Chase
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because he said he was over there with Scott Hall's son.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chase Owens.
He's part of the Bullet Club.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what he said.
He's making some good waves out in Japan, man.
Yeah.
Huh?
I'd say he's making some good waves out in Japan right now, so I'm really happy for him.
He actually just came back home and won the Smoky Mountain Cup for Innovate Pro Wrestling.
Alright.
Yeah.
So his name is Tsunami?
That's what his first name. That's what his first name was. I can't remember what he goes by now. I think he just goes by Corey.
Yeah, right now it just goes by Supervisor Corey.
Yeah.
I think his wife is happy about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, wrestling, it not only does it take a toll on your body, but it takes a toll on your family. Because when we were wrestling, we were gone 4+ nights a week.
Yeah.
So, and we had regular jobs too. So we'd work, 8 to 5, and then you jump in a car and you head, a couple hours down the road,
Okay.
do another show, and then you're not home till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. Then it's rinse, recycle, repeat.
We literally did a loop where it was like 6 shows in a week. We did a Thursday night show in like Trenton, Georgia, and then we would, Friday night we'd be in Blue Ridge. We'd wake up the next morning and then drive all the way to some other town in North Georgia to do a national title pond show. Do it at like 11 o'clock that morning, then leave from there to drive to either Canton or Jasper, Georgia to do another show. And then we had another title pond show that following Sunday, and then another show that night. And it's like, wow, eventually this is going to put wear and tear on your body, and it does. It really does. And the cool thing though, with me at least, is that I can bring my family with me, you know, because they sit in the crowd. My son, you know, still to this day loves wrestling, so it was cool for him to see, you know, Daddy go out there and either be the bad guy or the superhero or whatever, you know. So it was cool for that. But then there's some shows where it's like, I don't think they're gonna let you in. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, or we would go travel, like when we go to Virginia, or we go to Mount Airy, North Carolina, or go somewhere like that. It's like, Daddy gonna be gone for the weekend. You know what I mean? And it does put some wear and tear on that family dynamic. But at the end of the day, they know you're coming back home. You know what I mean? And you go for a while, you come back and see your kids. It's like that's the best thing, knowing that they missed you. You know what I mean? So that's a good thing.
So, what was your favorite era of pro wrestling?
Favorite era, I guess when Sting was a part of the WWE, but I was gonna say he was with AEW for a little while.
He's still in AEW.
Okay, because I haven't seen him in years. It's just
So you're a more recent guy.
well, not really recent. It was more along the line of I used to watch it back then when I was a kid. I used to watch the original of Sting himself.
Oh, okay. So it's WCW.
Surface thing.
WCW, yeah.
Before he was the Crow, or after the Crow?
I remember when he found the ring.
Oh,
From the top.
Yeah, so the Crow's thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about you?
Technically, I started watching in 2016, but I do remember the Attitude Era. But unfortunately, I was young back then. I was not allowed to watch it. It wasn't until I got older when I was able to watch it.
I understand.
Because my mom was not allowed to, I was allowed to play the games, I was not allowed to watch it. I was too young.
Yeah.
Probably because of language.
Yeah, that's probably why, because back then it was TV-14.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it didn't go to an M rating at one point because of all the crazy.
He enjoyed his
Yeah.
cup.
Oh, yeah.
But you also have to understand that during that time frame, WCW was kicking Vince McMahon's ass. At that point. You know, they were, what was it, 83 weeks? 83 weeks, just beating them in the ratings. Right. And then the Attitude Era was the shift. And there were small, you can see, even in 96, 97, there were small little things that took place which led up to that Attitude Era happening. Like 1996 with Austin 316, 1997 the formation of the Generation X and the Montreal Screwjob, going into 1998 at that WrestleMania when Austin beat Michaels, which many people, including WWE themselves, considered that the kickoff of the Attitude Era. But you know, there were still little nuggets of the Attitude Era sprinkled into that back then. Let's be honest, and not just WWE, but the entire wrestling business in 1995 was almost at its lowest point that it's ever been. And it wasn't until the Monday Night War and WCW versus WWE the Attitude Era really kicked off and really brought a really, I call it the second wrestling boom, because it's what made it. Because you even had people who never really cared for professional wrestling, and now you're walking through the hallway of your high school and everybody's wearing T-shirts, and oh, this guy's got an NWO shirt, this guy's wearing an Austin 316 shirt, this guy's wearing a DX shirt. Like, none of you motherfuckers liked wrestling a year ago. Why are you wearing these shirts now? You know what I mean? It's almost like an insult to people who are like real wrestling fans. You know what I mean? But you know, it is what it is. I guess it was because it was, what does it say? High school never ends, and the trends always, you know, come and go. So maybe that's just my experience.
Yeah, I equate that to, it's almost like geekdom, nerdom. Like when you were growing up, you had to kind of shelter that because you would get picked on. So when I was younger and watching wrestling before the Attitude Era, I had to kind of keep that to myself because nobody in the school that I went to knew anything about wrestling. But as soon as like Austin 316 and the NWO hit, it became a pop culture phenomenon.
It did.
And wrestling has been like in that forefront ever since. So, your favorite era?
80s, 90s. Here lately, I've been watching a lot of like the 70s, like the territory era.
What's your favorite territory? If you had to
I like
pick.
Memphis.
Memphis,
Like,
yeah.
Jerry the King Lawler and
Yeah.
all.
But you gotta admit, Memphis did have some really wild out there gimmicks for the time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's like only in Memphis could a gimmick like that in a weird way get over. You know, like it wouldn't have gotten over in the Carolinas or in Florida or something. It's like you can only get over in Memphis.
Yeah, but you have to go with the loudmouth Crockett. I mean,
Loudmouth Crockett.
yeah, go with him. He's good.
Your favorite era?
I don't know if I really have a favorite one. Like I said, I started in '82. Hogan and Piper got me into actually watching wrestling. Then I found Flair and the Four Horsemen, and that just spiked it up for me. And then I'd have to go with the '80s just because that was my childhood, and I grew up. We grew up in Pennsylvania, so that was a big hub of wrestling and everything.
Yep.
And so we had no problem with having to talk about wrestling and things in school and stuff because it was there. Because we were close to Allentown, Pennsylvania. I think they wrestled in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So we were right in that area. So I'd have to say '80s just because it was the childhood. But I think NWO and Attitude really got me more back into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, it's a conspiracy because I think McMahon and Turner got together and said, "Hey, what can we do to spice this up?" That's my conspiracy about it.
No, it's an interesting conspiracy.
I wouldn't say that's too far from the truth.
It's not too far fetched.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, Vince McMahon and Ted Turner are friends.
Mhm.
And when Ted Turner bought WCW from Jim Crockett, the first person he called was Vince McMahon, and he said, "Hey Vinny, I'm in the wrestling business now."
Yeah.
And then Vince responded, "I'm in the entertainment business."
Yeah.
You know.
Then that war just started. I mean,
Yeah.
it's there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
definitely.
mean,
I can see it.
Yeah. I can see.
love him or hate him, and I know he's getting a lot of hate in the news currently. Vince McMahon is probably one of, if not the smartest wrestling mind.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Oh, most definitely.
I mean, you got to think, territory age, Vince McMahon steps in and he takes it over.
Yeah.
Boom.
He took it over, and the thing is that he broke his father's promise that he would never try to make a monopoly out of the business, and he did anyway.
But then he would go, "That's my dad's promise,
Exactly.
not my promise."
Exactly.
You know.
No, you make that's
Yeah.
correct assessment. Yeah, absolutely.
And Vince is like that. I mean, he don't care. He don't care who you are. It's all about the business. What can I do? How can I make money? How big can I make this? Oh yeah. He's a very, very intelligent man in that area. Right?
Questions?
So, it's not really a question, but back in high school, I actually used to wrestle for our school's wrestling team. And I used to be 392 pounds. I'm down to 215, 216.
Congratulations.
So the coach wanted me on the football team at first. I said, I don't know how good I'll be in cardio. So you might just want to put me on the front line so I can help block. But they did that for a little while. Then my shoulder got even more messed up. And then I just had a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah.
And the coach put me in weight class because he wanted me to go more into wrestling. So he tried to bulk me up more, which he did. But I don't have my build like I used to because I've been losing a lot of weight. So I'm down to this natural weight that I have, but I'm going to regain my muscle back. And I thought about going back to wrestling. I thought about going to AEW.
Okay. Yeah.
If you're wanting to get into the business, I would say start small.
That's
Like
what-
I appreciate like the overall goal if you wanted to go to AEW or any big time.
Well, I didn't really mean big time. I mean like a local wrestling.
Go up here to Red Bank, Tennessee. Go to a place called TWE. Talk to Jay Newman.
Okay.
If you want to pursue that as a goal, talk to him. He can set you up. They got a dojo. They do classes every Monday and Tuesday. So it's really good.
What's funny is I know Krav Maga, so I know how to bend my body a certain way, so I'll be able to pick somebody up by the leg and then slam them.
Okay.
Or haymaker, or like whatever you would like to throw out there, you know, just random little wrestling moves that I've studied as a kid on TV that I've actually trained with some buddies of mine on our back porch, which was made of wood. Don't get me wrong, but it was like a cage match that we made. But it wasn't the safest, but it was there. And we had MMA, you know, gloves and everything that we were using, but it was just great.
I will tell you this, if you do decide to go that route and want to train, I'll be completely and totally honest with you. One day of training professional wrestling, just learning the basics, is a whole lot harder than doing it 2 a day in football.
Yeah.
It's really, even the training process, regardless of how long it is, whether it be 6 months to a year or whatever, it's very, very taxing on the body.
Oh, yeah.
So you need to be more mentally than physically prepared.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what about you, buddy?
Favorite era? Same as.
Yeah, I'm basically all spread out. I like the Attitude Era because I was just a big Scott Hall fan. That was my guy, so
That's
I
nice.
like Razor. And then I quit watching for a while, and he called and said, hey, they're over in WCW. And so when he did that, I just started watching them again when they built the NWO and all that stuff. And I was a youth pastor at the time, so I had a skit where I had to have demons in it, so we just made them all NWO shirts, so they got to be NWO. So the guys got into it, and so I took them one side, we got ringside, I think it was Salem, Virginia, and we seen Nitro, and we didn't know it. Thunder was supposed to be a holiday weekend, so they got 2 shows in one night, we were ringside. And one of my kids almost got arrested because he threw a Coke in the ring and hit DDP. But he got lucky because the guy on the end of this road was drunk and started fighting the cops when they came to get him, so they took the drunk guy instead.
What year was this?
Oh my gosh, this was 90s, late 90s. When DDP was battling him. You know, he's taking on the NWO and fight him.
98, right?
98.
Yeah, so I knew it was the late 90s, and and one of the guys stood, and I turned, right when he came overhead, I said, I know that's one of my guys. Because I went up front because these guys were right against the rail, and they were college guys, and I was going just taking pictures so we could have them for our youth group.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, just sit here with us. So I just squeezed in with them, and that code came over my head, and I was like, I know that's one of my guys.
Right?
Yeah, and I was like, your grandparents aren't going to be happy paying a fine. Because I sure wasn't. But yeah, that was my era, and plus, nothing major, but I did a weekend stint with what was called the Exodus Wrestling Federation. Because it was a Christian, I guess it was a guy who used to wrestle Hogan, Flair. He was more of a beat-up guy. I don't know if he was some kind of all-star. He had the stars down his jacket. I don't remember who he was. I don't know if you know him. I forget what he called himself and that, but I know he had a black jacket with the silver stars down his, and
Okay.
he I guess he got saved and he started doing a wrestling federation called Exodus went around.
Okay.
And they called me one time and said, you know anything about wrestling? Are you crazy enough to get in the ring with these guys? I said, I'll do it. So I've never had no training, so they threw this guy 6'5" into the turnbuckle. I was supposed to act like I was passed out, so I'll play it up.
He was the ref.
Yeah, I was the ref. Let's get this right, I was the ref. So I said, I'll play this up. Yeah, I wasn't going to do nothing crazy. I had a bum knee, that's what I did in my college career, so I couldn't do nothing.
Right.
So I said, I'm going to play this up, and never had no training. I'm just going to fall, like he knocked me out. I hit that mat, didn't realize it felt like concrete.
Yeah.
All that wind went out of me. I was laying there going, yeah, my thoughts of doing this is over. Real quick, I hated that real quick.
That's the thing. People think that the ring is like a trampoline or a mattress. It's not.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not. It's literally a metal frame. You got about 6 to 8 bars going, metal beams going one way, and about 2 to 3 going the other way. Then you got either a whole bunch of 8x10s or plywood, whatever it was, on top, and then you got a mat on there. It's anywhere between a ½ inch to an inch thick, and then you got 1, maybe 2. Yeah, by the time you set the whole thing up and put it all together, yeah, some do have a little bit of give to it, but others is, I might as well, suplex on this floor right here.
Yeah, that's what that one felt like. It had no give
Which-
whatsoever. I got up and staggered over like I was knocked out, but I had the wind knocked out of me. And they're like, yeah, that was awesome. Won't you travel with us? Oh, no, I'm good.
That was real.
That's like
Yeah, that was real.
That's like with me and him when we first started training. Our first quote unquote bump wasn't even inside of the ring. We learned to fall on concrete.
Ooh.
That was how we learned the first 6 weeks of our training. And then after I guess what it was just a mental test. They were just trying to test to see if they were trying to make us quit,
Yeah.
basically. And then after about 6 weeks, the guy that was training us was well, I guess these boys don't want to quit. I guess I'll teach them how to wrestle. You know, and then it was all downhill from there, I guess.
Like you were saying, our high school was always competing for state champions, so wrestling was big in our area. So,
Right.
and that's how our coach was. He'd run you to death, just trying to make you quit, see if you really wanted to stay with it.
Oh, yeah. How about you, man?
I don't know if I have a favorite here, but my most nostalgic. I grew up watching at the tail end of the Ruthless Russian era, right when the PG era was beginning. My biggest, I guess, nostalgia year was probably 2010, when, all the John Cena hype was real. And there, I found TNA at the time. I was into, that was when they were doing, Fortune and Immortal and Jeff Hardy heel turn, all that stuff. So I was deep into that.
Right.
That was some good wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good nuggets right
Yeah, those little, you wouldn't have got so Jeff Hardy obviously started in the WWF/WWE, but you really did a lot of the character that he became when he came back to WWE. He kind of develops that character in Impact/TNA. Now, there was some dark years there with him, most notably the Sting incident. Do you guys remember that?
Victory Road.
Where Jeff Hardy shows up and he's clearly inebriated, whether it was drug-induced or alcohol-induced, or both. We're not 100% sure, but it was, it's just a god-awful experience. We actually talked about that on one of the episodes of our podcast.
Yeah. The episode was entitled Wrestling Events That Were Only Remembered for One Specific Moment. Because normally, if you watch a big event, there's a bunch of little things that you can take from, who won this match, or what was this heel turn, or what was the surprise here. But was it Victory Road 2011? Is that it? Mm-hmm. That's the only thing people remember. And we can go back and we can look at the card and stuff, and we can see, oh, okay, I kind of remember this match. I know who those guys are, but I don't remember this particular match. But everybody remembers Jeff Hardy messed up out of his mind going into that match. How you know, buddy?
I just recently met a guy was Tugboat and type
Shockmaster.
Fred Ottman.
Shockmaster, yeah. Just recently met him and talked with him, and that's one of the things. One of the things I'm most remember for is the first time you see me as Shockmaster, coming through that wall and tumbling, and helmet falling off. And he was telling us about how the wall it wasn't really a fake wall. It was actually a real wall he had to bust through. He said, I had to bust through that thing. He said, I couldn't see out of that helmet, couldn't see a thing. Then that's all I knew.
So they were supposed to, that wall where they had set it up, there wasn't supposed to be a stud there at the bottom, but they mislocated it. And if you watch it back, you can actually see there's two 2x4s, and that's what trips him. If those 2x4s hadn't been there, his entrance would have been
great.
Yeah. But also, so he didn't do the voice. So when he's in the mask, there's a guy off camera who's doing the voice of the character.
Ole Anderson.
And
was it Ole?
Yeah, it was Ole.
Sid Vicious was supposed to react to what the Shockmaster was saying. Well, when Fred fell, the guy who's supposed to be doing the voice is just laughing and misses his cue. But if you watch it back, you'll see he gets up and he adjusts the helmet, and then he's pointing, and Sid can't hear. So Sid goes into his promo where he's retorting what the Shockmaster says. Then the guy who's off camera recovers and goes into his bit, and so it's off.
Yeah.
One of the funniest parts of that whole thing also was when Fred Ottman fell out. You can very faintly hear it, but British Bulldog, David Boy, was out there, and you can hear him say, he's like, damn, he fell on his fucking ass. British accent. Yeah. You can faintly hear it, but if you can pick it up, it's pretty hilarious when you hear it.
It's also funny, him scrambling for a helmet, because you're not supposed to know who it is. He's scrambling for that helmet, trying
and
to
this
get
is
back
live
on.
TV too.
Yeah,
It's live TV.
TV.
It was during the Flair for the Gold segment. They were setting up for, what was it, War Games?
Yeah,
They were setting up for War Games. And when you have something like that happen, which you know,
And you have these four
Yeah.
big names standing out there during their promo and going, well, 5. And he's supposed to crash through and blah, blah, blah.
is that
Yeah.
a Jim Herd thing?
Well,
Shot
also, if you go back and watch that, you'll notice that, so Flair and his wife Wendy, you can see them scoot out the back of the double doors. You can faintly see them scoot out the back before Fred takes the tumble. And
Almost as if like, this is fixing to be bad.
Flair has said he was recently on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he said that it was just a luck of the draw, because had he been there when Fred fell, he said, I couldn't have held my face. I would have just fell out laughing, and I couldn't do that for the segment. So, you just showed up. We're talking favorite eras of pro wrestling.
Okay.
What was your favorite era?
I remember I watched it kind of off and on. I used to go to my cousin's house. He had some old wrestling magazines. All the dudes had blood coming out their eyes and stuff. What the hell? So that was cool. Yeah, I watched it. I think when I first got into it was back then when Hulk Hogan and all the guys I watched a little bit of that. I always had like a passing interest. Me and one of my buddies, we've been talking about it. He gave me this little graphic novel, has a bunch of the stories in it recently, and he shot me a picture. I'm from up in Spring City.
Okay.
He shot me a picture of an old car that had, taken place up there. So I was kind of like, that's pretty cool. So I happened to be flipping through as I was walking by and noticed that was what was going on. I was like, turned around and went to it.
Yep, that's.
I like that kind of, I was born in '73, so like I said, I didn't watch a lot of it, but I do like that kind of, like mid to late '70s era was kind of my
They're more of the
stuff I like to
territorial
look back
days.
at when I do get online and find videos on YouTube and whatnot. That's
Yeah.
me and my buddy, we always swap videos back and forth from there.
There's a good YouTube channel called Wrestling Classics.
Okay.
I believe that's what it is. And they have a lot of stuff from the territories on there. So that's a good one for some of that old stuff. But you mentioned Hulk Hogan, and my buddy here, Roger, he has a very hot take for him. Before he gets into that, I will say Hogan is probably, you take him personally out of the equation, he is probably one of the more polar guys because he had an entire career as this big, baby face, good guy, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and then, everybody said that he could never be the bad guy. And then he goes to WCW and he gets kind of stagnant, and Bobby Heenan's just running him into the ground. He's old and all this. And then he helps form the NWO and has this kind of resurgence and secondary career. You could almost look at that as two separate careers in wrestling, where he became the top bad guy for a 3-year span.
Yeah.
But yeah, we like to joke here on Movement Radio, and Hulk Hogan is Roger's favorite wrestler.
We actually have 2 episodes that are completely devoted to all the lies that Hulk Hogan has said over the past so many years. It's actually, most of them are pretty funny. So, and hearing him rant is the greatest thing ever. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, they said Hogan struggled with that. He wouldn't even do it up till then. They thought Sting was walking out. The last second, Hogan walked out
That
and
was
decided to do it because it was supposed to be Sting as the third person. He said he did it.
We
I wonder
actually,
how that would have went if Sting would have been the bad guy. That would have been interesting.
well, it's funny that you bring that up because we actually have an episode called it's the top 10 WCW what ifs, and one of the questions is what if Sting had been the third man instead of Hulk Hogan, and we hypothesized that we don't think it would have worked out, and the reason why is because it would have been the NWO versus Hulk Hogan. Who the hell do you think's going to win?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And
NWO.
Hogan's shocking the betrayal of Hogan to all these kids and all that is what really rocketed that.
And that's what
They
they
shot it up shocking.
For years, I was like, I want Hogan to go bad. When he
Yeah.
came out and went bad, I jumped. I was like, yes, bad.
Here's the funny thing about Hogan, from say your prayers, eat your vitamins Hogan, to, you know, NWO scum Hogan. His wrestling style never changed. Never once. He grew a beard and
Did a couple outfits.
2 different
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah, 2 different colors, right?
he had the
Yeah.
blonde handlebar and then the black stubble under. He switched from the red and yellow to black and white with a little bit of blue in the lightning bolts. But his wrestling style, he still did the Hulk up.
Oh yeah.
And I think he added a back rake in there.
What was Hollywood Hogan?
Yeah.
Because I do remember back in the day there was someone called Hollywood
That was
Hulk
That was
Hogan.
him when he was
Yeah, but
bad.
it was the
That's
same.
when he went bad.
Yeah,
It's the same person.
He just
Like-
got himself Hollywood because he was a big bad guy.
Well,
And he was also making more movies at that time too.
yeah, he was.
Those amazing movies.
Hey,
You leave Mr. Mandy alone,
Mr.
okay?
Mandy.
Suburban Commando.
Come on, Suburban Commando. It's gotta be one of the all-time great movies.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
Yeah.
I mean, just hearing the Undertaker talking that voice in Suburban Commando, that just makes that movie right there.
I think was in a movie called Satchel with Muscles.
Yes.
Sam with muscles.
Yeah.
Who can forget that?
Well-
That was classic.
Like we were telling you about that skit we did, when I had the guys the Demons be NWO. He was dressed as Hogan.
Came out with
The
a
bright
white
yellows,
red.
all that.
God.
And we had over 1,000 kids there, you know. They were watching the skit, and when he came up, they all
I
started
doing the
cheering.
Hogan
They
thing,
thought he was
you know.
going to fight the demons. And then as he runs up to him, he stops. And he turns on, strips that shirt, and they're like,
NWO
you
shirt
got
on.
the same reaction there as you did when he turned.
Yeah,
It was worth it, man. They were upset on that one.
Took a girl that lost and dumped her in a garbage can.
Upside down. She said, "Damn!" Yeah, because she was my athlete in my group. This girl, basketball, she could play anything, and she told him as they graduated, just put me in the trash can. But we, so they
Dumped her in
did.
the garbage
What
can.
kind of GCW bullshit is that?
Hey, they remembered that skit. That's all you can say.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
We like to say that pro wrestling is about the moment.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter how fancy or flashy the moves are or whatnot, but you remember the moment.
Yeah.
You remember the moment that Hulk Hogan turned heel.
Mhm.
You remember the moment that John Cena debuted the spinner title.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You remember when Sting came down from the rafters.
Right.
Those are the moments that you remember.
Right, exactly. Perfect example. Do you guys remember that episode of Monday Night Raw where Shelton Benjamin and Shawn Michaels had that match, and the match ended with Shelton Benjamin doing the springboard into the super kick? Does anybody remember that? Can you tell me anything else about that match other than that spot?
Chain wrestling for 5 minutes.
You say what?
Chain wrestling for 5 minutes.
Yeah, but that
Double leg
yeah,
kick
but,
down.
yeah, but you watch more wrestling than me. So that
Like one of my moments was Scott Hall tased Goldberg.
Yeah. Oh,
You
that.
know, everyone didn't even know he was there. They're supposed to be fighting each other, and all of a sudden he comes on the table, and I'm like, okay, awesome, they're back.
One of my things is Brooklyn Brawler. Remember him?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
They finally gave him a belt after all those years of just being a beat up guy. They finally gave him a belt, and that's what I remember.
What was it, the hardcore title?
Yeah, I think it was hardcore or something like that. Yeah, they finally gave him a title.
Yep.
I was
He
like,
got off of,
he earned it. All those years, he earned it.
Yeah.
I think it was Crash, wasn't it?
It may have been Crash.
I think it was Crash during that weird.
It was that weird 24/7 there and thing.
Speaking of beat up guys, anybody remember Barry Horowitz?
Mm-hmm. I do.
What do you remember about Barry Horowitz?
You said the name, and that's what I remember.
That's literally it.
Tell you the truth, that's what I
Just a
remember. The
jobber.
name. Yeah.
Right, just got beat up. But
His biggest claim to fame is he was a women's champion.
Yep.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
the only
Yeah.
time I ever remember him actually winning a match was on WWF Superstars against Hakushi. That was the only match I ever remember this guy winning.
That was when he turned heel and he would sit on the apron. And Tommaso Ciampa does it now. He would sit on the apron and pat himself on the back.
Okay. Yep.
Barry Horowitz originated that.
Yeah.
Alright.
All right, my man in the back with the Seth Rollins shirt. Shout out to you for coming here. What's your favorite era of wrestling?
I know that guy.
You know that guy?
I work with him.
Oh,
Favorite era of wrestling is has to be mid 2000s to mid 2010s.
okay.
He was a ruthless aggression.
Okay, so ruthless aggression.
Yeah, ruthless aggression eras for sure.
That
Favorite
OVW class.
favorite moment from the ruthless aggression era.
Ooh, that's rough.
There was a lot of them. A lot of really good ones in that
Ruthless
area.
Aggression to me, probably my
So
favorite.
let's see. I mean, of course, the Ruthless Aggression, John Cena debut. That's gotta be one of them. But I have to say John Cena debuting on Raw after the draft.
That was a good one.
As a kid, watching it, and just the crowd's reaction, and just even Jericho's reaction. I mean, I know he was selling it, but it was still like, as a kid, it was just like mind-boggling for me.
I do remember for John Cena, this happened the same night. You've been drafted to SmackDown. Well, I made my mistake. You drafted to one now.
The 2008 or 2009
I think it's
draft.
2009 draft.
Yeah, that whole like what was the point of it? You know, like,
Yeah.
that was, you
Oh,
know,
it was like Triple H and they won't work SmackDown.
Triple H only
Judges
worked two.
SmackDown.
Paul Heyman said it best at one night stand. I remember that.
And I also have to say, Jeff Hardy winning the title at
Armageddon 2008.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Hardy, as a lot of people grew up, that was their favorite wrestler. And he was probably my favorite wrestler, number one. And I remember crying watching him win the title because that's how much it meant to me as a Hardy fan. Seeing, knowing all that he went through and all the stuff he did go through afterwards, yes, but just all the stuff that he went through before, it was just.
That's the great thing about wrestling, it makes us feel emotions.
Exactly.
Now they're the Hardy Boys ladder matches
Yes.
with the others. Those were good.
TLC too.
Yeah.
TLC 2 for WrestleMania. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jumping off the.
I just wish they would have gave Eugene the heavyweight title.
Eugene.
I was like,
Close.
come
I know.
on, man. I was so, you don't talk about being mad. I was mad. I wasn't even as big as he was on wrestling. I was like, come
I mean,
on.
but he was a tag team champion. He was a tag
Yeah,
team.
they should have gave him the title. I was like, come on. Everybody wanted it.
See, the funny thing is there's people, sorry to interrupt, there's people like that, like Eugene, or the gimmick comedy characters that would
Yeah.
want to win. Like Santino's probably the best example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Santino.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Royal Rumble against Alberto Del Rio, they were cheering for him because they wanted him to win the Rumble so bad. And then as soon as he gets thrown out, you can feel the energy
He
just
just died.
go away
Oh, yeah.
completely.
He
Because
died.
he was this close.
Yeah.
And guys like that where they just do so much good work over time, it's just like, yeah, might as well. Like,
You
why
probably
not?
just said my most hated wrestler. Del
It was
Rio.
Santino?
No, Del
Del
Rio.
Rio?
Oh, Del Rio.
I met him in real life and how he was.
No, he's
Oh,
Oh,
he's a
yeah.
beast worker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I met him, dude. So,
But now, Eugene, the guy who plays
Yeah.
Eugene, Nick Dinsmore,
Yeah.
had they not saddled him with that gimmick, I think he could have been something.
yeah.
Because he could actually wrestle very similar to like a Chris Benoit.
Yeah, he's a good wrestler.
Eddie Guerrero style.
But he was, unfortunately, he was one of those Jim Cornette OVW guys that Vince hated for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of those guys from OVW that were brought up that weren't Bautista, Lesnar, Cena, Orton, that were better wrestlers, but just didn't get the moment for some reason.
Yeah. And a lot of those guys in OVW, like, I mean, there's a couple of, when you think of OVW, the four names that you automatically think of are what you just said, Lesnar, Batista, Orton, and Cena. And there was a couple of other guys. It was Shelton Benjamin also went to the OVW system and a couple of other guys, but, you know, those were like the four focal points of that. Yeah, the four pillars, if you will, of the OVW. You know, and then we're moving into nowadays in modern wrestling. I'll ask you guys, do you think that modern wrestling today will ever be as popular as what it was back in the 80s or even now?
No.
No.
And what do you guys think?
He doesn't.
You think? Okay, I'm curious to hear this.
I think with how accessible it is now, that it's going to be a lot easier to get people in. For example, like at my school, I was the only person who was into wrestling. It wasn't until like 4th grade that I met someone who liked wrestling.
Right.
I had been trying for years to get my friends into wrestling. It wasn't until 2021 that like my best friend really started getting into wrestling because like he found I forget the guy's name, but he does like documentary style videos on YouTube. I think
Kenny
it's
Johnson?
Super Eye Patch Wolf, I think that's his name.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And he did the wrestling music, wrestling.
No, not that
Not
one.
that
He
one,
did the
I know what you're talking about. He talks about The Undertaker, he talks about Becky
Yes.
Lynch.
I thought he was talking about the guy who did like the MJF.
No, that's what Tim Johnson.
Yeah, I know that's
him.
him. Yeah, I know that guy.
But he Super White Patch did do one where he was talking about wrestling and how it's like the best form of entertainment or something like that. What was it called? I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's like an hour long, but it's a really
Yeah.
good detail.
But after we started watching those videos, we started talking a lot more about wrestling. Like, MJF is probably favorite wrestler now. So,
Blame him.
Yeah, I can't blame
Can't
him.
blame him.
MJF checks all the marks of what a good. Like if MJF was around in the 1980s or 1990s, he would probably be the most hated. If he's not already the most hated. But back in that day, the knowledge was less accessible to the fan base. So back then, oh yeah, he would have been.
We're talking about the 80s when wrestling got ruled.
No, it was the early 90s.
I just think it's too predictable.
Because
You think it's too predictable?
It's just too predictable. The writing ain't as good as it used to be.
Okay.
There's no shock.
He's going.
I know there's no shock at all. I mean, like back in the day, someone could walk out and you wouldn't even realize it, and they could take a title or win a title, and you didn't know. Sometimes you didn't know what the move or something was going to be. And I think they kill characters too easy. You got these characters built up, and then you write them off on some weird line, and you're like, "What just happened, man? Why are you killing this character?" I don't watch as much as I used to, so you'll probably have more in depth, and he probably will too. He knows I don't watch it no more. It's just because of that.
Did you watch WrestleMania this year?
I did watch WrestleMania.
Who did you say going into that the main event, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns? Who was going to win that match?
Who'd I say?
Roman Reigns.
Then you were one of.
I predicted every match. You can ask me. And I don't even watch it. I
We
predicted
sit there
every
and
match.
predict them like, okay, we knew that was coming.
If I'd known that betting thing was on there before that, I would have bet. I would have been in there.
Okay.
I would have won it all.
Okay, so you are one of a handful of few people that actually predicted. We did.
Yes.
But
But it was a good match.
Oh,
I
it
watched
was a good match. It was a very good
yeah,
match.
so the majority to go back to.
It was my favorite match tonight. Tag team.
Oh, the tag team match was,
Oh, yeah,
was
that was
great.
That was my favorite match tonight.
But
Charlotte Raven's awesome.
everybody said, "Oh, Cody's gonna win it. He's gonna win the big one finally."
He's going to finish the story.
And
There
then he
you go.
didn't. And you know what? In my opinion, I think it was the best thing they could have done
Yeah.
was not have him win it. What?
My reason was he wasn't over 1,000 days of being a heavyweight champion. Also, that's what I factored into. Because he hasn't had the belt as long as they want, because they want to break some records and get, I think, erase some names.
Yeah.
So that's the whole reason. It was more, to me, I thought it was more of a political pull, just to erase some names. For winning that, get rid of some names they don't want there.
But I see your point about it was a shock.
Yeah, it was a shock for a lot of people.
It
Yeah.
was a shock.
Yeah.
When Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania.
I hated that.
Yeah.
I didn't want him to win.
You might have hated it, but it was a shock.
Yeah.
What do you remember from that moment?
Everybody in the crowd.
Everybody's faces.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
remember there's the one guy
Nobody
whose
wanted to streak
eyes
in.
are
Yeah.
bulged.
I remember
This
that.
far
Yeah.
out of his
Yeah,
head.
yeah, they like that.
Because
Oh, yeah.
nobody,
Yeah.
Yeah.
everybody thought The Undertaker would
Stay defeated.
stay undefeated at WrestleMania. The moments are still there. You just have
Yeah.
The Undertaker made that call too.
You gotta wait
He
for it.
didn't want it. He wanted to get rid of that.
You wanted for years to get rid of it. Most
Well,
of the
yeah.
opponents didn't want to take it.
yeah, most of the opponents didn't
See,
want.
my whole thing is I didn't mind if he lost the streak, but to Brock Lesnar,
Lesnar didn't need
Yeah,
it.
let's
No.
not repeat it. It should
No.
definitely gone to somebody
It would,
else.
Somebody else
if he
would've
would have
been
lost
better.
to either Bray Wyatt or Roman Reigns,
Right.
I would have been okay with it. Hell, if
He
he
did
lost
lose to Roman. He did lose to
But I'm
Roman.
talking about, I know he lost to Roman Reigns. I'm talking about
actually losing the streak.
Streak,
Yeah,
Actually losing
it
the
was still
streak.
a streak.
Yeah.
I'd say CM Punk.
I do remember.
I wouldn't put CM Punk in there, but yeah.
Well,
I
hell,
like
in
him to somebody else.
2005, when
Yeah.
Are you not a CM Punk guy?
Not a big CM Punk fan, yeah.
We'll double back to that. We were-
I do remember in WrestleMania match, it was The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. No, it was Undertaker versus Triple H with Shawn Michaels as the special guest.
the end of the era cage match.
Yes,
That was awesome.
It was, I believe, Hunter did. He pretty much stole the Undertaker's move and it didn't work. He did the tombstone power driver on him, I believe.
Yeah.
I think
That
that's
didn't
how
work,
Shawn-
so Shawn Michaels did the super kick to him after the pedigree. It was either the super kick after the pedigree or the pedigree after the super kick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That did not work.
Yeah. And
It's the Undertaker.
yeah. And what's so crazy is that like we were over at our buddy Johnny's house and there's like 18 people in this little room. And when that spot happened, it was like, oh, it's over. 1, 2, kick out. Every single one of us who know that professional wrestling is still, you know, somewhat choreographed on stage. We all were fans at that moment, and we all went, oh!
Yeah.
Like, you know, because even if you know what's going on, even if you are in the quote-unquote in crowd, you can still get hooked and you can still buy into and believe in what you're
If they
watching.
sell it well,
It
it's
was
a really
like
good story.
it was like street chair music, and then the pedigree, 1, 2,
Kick.
yeah.
Yep.
See, the one thing my argument with the no pops, I was at SummerSlam this past year, and no one predicted Brock Lesnar to take that tractor to the ring and pop it up like
Yeah,
that.
that was
crazy.
That was the first time and probably the last time.
The only time I kicked myself not going to a match was basically because I didn't want to go with the girl because she was trying to go out with me. And I was like, no. So she had tickets to go to WWE in Roanoke, and it's when Stone Cold came out with the beer truck and sprayed everybody. I would have been there. I would have been there, and I'm like, I should have went anyway. Who cares? I should have went because it's a free ticket. But I knew the whole, if I'd have went, she would have been expecting us to get together. So that was the whole, I was trying not to hurt someone's feelings. Trying to be nice at the time.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, I was a youth pastor at the time, so I wasn't married. So I was trying to be nice because it was one of my workers that worked with me. But still, when I seen that happen, I was like, you idiot. I could have been one of the most biggest moments ever when he came out with that truck. And I don't drink, but I would have been that close to get sprayed, so I wouldn't have cared. It's just been a watch.
Like Thanos
All
said,
right.
a small sacrifice for salvation.
Yeah.
We got 15 minutes. Let's double back to the CM Punk thing. You don't like CM Punk?
Ever or
Ever? Or recent?
I was never big on him. Never
Okay.
big on him.
Why?
He always seemed too arrogant for me. Very, very arrogant.
can
I
see
mean,
that.
I can understand your character being arrogant, but it seemed like it was more him than a character. And that kind of got on my nerves. If a person's arrogant in real life, but his character isn't on TV, then, you know, I can go with it. Whatever you are in real life, blah. You know, but I just can never connect with the guy.
And he always had to have a type, or he was crying.
Yeah,
He had to be it.
Yeah, he was always whining,
how do
always.
you feel about MJF?
That's what I was fixing to ask you.
Yeah. MJF.
Yes.
Because MJF is who he is on
He is
TV
who he
and in the
is.
ring is the same thing that he is on the outside.
I really don't know much about MJF.
I don't know MJF either. Who is
Okay.
he?
So he's the AEW heavyweight champion.
We don't watch. That's why we haven't watched that.
Oh, okay.
But they end up, you know, walls.
So he still believes in the philosophy of keeping it real no matter what you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should hear the stuff he
Keep your
says,
character
too.
outside the ring as well as
Yeah,
inside
so
the ring.
he plays his part no matter where he is, whether he's in.
Which throws you back to the 70s and 80s where you're not
That's-
supposed to
that's
tell
the
people that it's
same
not
thing.
real.
Yeah.
You know.
That's
Yeah.
his influences. He really is that old school
The
style.
character's all right, but just CM Punk is who he is.
And we've seen him in Hell in a Cell
Yeah.
match
In Atlanta.
in Atlanta. We've seen that match. I mean, it was a good match, but I was hoping he was going to lose.
Yeah.
I was like, please beat him.
Yeah.
Well, steroid guy.
Well, this is my thing. CM Punk,
Yeah.
CM Punk 2012 is probably my favorite wrestler of all time.
Really?
See, I'm weird. For me, my favorite CM Punk was when he was in Ring of Honor.
Oh, yeah, I mean-
him and Samoa Joe were beating the hell out of each other.
For sure.
That's what got me into Ring of Honor was that
Yeah,
trilogy
if
between CM
you
Punk
haven't
and
seen any of CM Punk's, I get what you're saying. So CM Punk was one of my favorite wrestlers up until a couple years ago.
the All Out deal.
That was my exact thing. Is CM Punk was so big for me. Like I cried when he came back. Everything like it meant so much to me. But then watching him in AEW is just our fandom is
See, I'm
gone.
different. I liked CM Punk when he first came in WWE, after E, whatever it is now. But as it went along, I started seeing who he was and how, in all his contracts, he had to have the belt, he had to have this, he had to have that, or he wasn't going to wrestle. Now, his wife was cool. I liked her character.
But our niece was a huge CM Punk fan.
Yeah,
So that's one thing, and we took her to that Hell in a Cell
yeah, to see
to
that.
see him and wrestle and
Yeah.
everything. But which was funny because
Okay, think
Okay.
about it.
We're fixing to wrap up.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
okay,
We're-
thank you.
Let's-
Yeah, we've been keeping up.
I want two things. We got 10 minutes, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask two things.
Yes. Hit-
One, I want to hear your rant, and two, I want to hear more about y'all.
Yeah.
You guys
Y'all
okay?
personally, I
I
want
was
to hear
going to
more
ask
about.
about what's your favorite match. What would be Ring of Honor, WCW, any type of belt?
Our favorite match of all time?
Yeah.
My
No, it doesn't have
Go
to
ahead,
be.
go ahead, Raj.
It doesn't have to be from WWE. It can be from anything like Ring of Honor, TNA, so and so.
Alright. Well, his is Melina versus Alicia Fox.
Yes.
Uh,
Best wrestler. No, my favorite match, very controversial, but my favorite match still to this day, main event WrestleMania 20, Chris Benoit versus Triple H versus Shawn Michaels. I cried so hard in that WrestleMania because Eddie Guerrero obviously gave me the title, but that moment after when they both hugged each other, 18 years of their stuff, and to me Eddie Guerrero's my favorite wrestler, the best wrestler ever. Benoit's still in my top 5. What he did outside of wrestling, it's outside of wrestling. What he did in the ring is what I look at. And those guys were people my size, my height, that were at the top of the business. And the biggest business part. It was like at one of the most competitive parts too.
Exactly.
Because SmackDown and Raw were competing 100% all the time, and they were
Yeah.
the top guys.
And it was that time, around that time, that 2003, 2004, 2005, that was probably one of the best times with Raw and SmackDown guys. We were trying to get exactly everything. Our show was the shit. You know what I mean? For me, I'm going all the way back to 1997. It's the match that made me say I want to be a pro wrestler, and it was Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, Mask versus Cruiserweight title at 1997 Halloween Havoc. To me, and there's been a plethora of great matches, but in my mind, that match to me is the greatest match that I've ever watched.
That was
The
good.
emotion that was behind it, the moves that they were doing at a time when people weren't doing the moves that they were doing. When you got Rey Mysterio coming off the ropes, hitting a flip, catching into a Hurricane Run on the outside, and Eddie Guerrero with his vicious backbreakers and just the mentality that he had, it was just, it was just after Eddie Guerrero had just turned heel too. That was it, because he had that black wet mullet walking to the ring. The title wasn't around his waist or even over his shoulder where you see he was hanging it off the back. Rey Mysterio coming out with the Phantom. I know most people in the comic book world, people know who the Phantom is. You know, when you walked out with the Phantom and stuff. I think the movie had just come out like a couple of months beforehand. But yeah, that opening sequence was amazing. You know, so I would say that would be my favorite match of all time. But you,
I've been watching wrestling for so long. It honestly is hard to pick a favorite match. I can pick favorite moments over favorite matches. But it would probably, if I had to choose one, it would be from Ring of Honor early years, and it's the CM Punk versus Joe Part 2.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah, we've got about 2 minutes, so unfortunately, we don't have time for the Hogan
I want to
rant.
hear the rant.
But I promise you, if you go to the podcast,
We have a ton of episodes.
Do
there,
you guys have a booth out there where you can get
Yeah,
your
yeah, we're right across the aisle.
Because I definitely want to get a picture and show Corey. I've seen you guys.
Okay. Yeah, but thank you guys so much for participating. That has been our time.
We'll be out here. You guys want to talk about it?
Yes.
We'll see y'all over there.
We'll talk all the time.